Well, let's get started because we have an amazing session. Happy New Year, everyone. My name is Lisa Kaplowitz. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Rucker Center for Women in Business, where we do three things: remove barriers, build community, and empower women with a focus on that mid-career, mid-level woman. We are just trying to create workplaces that work for everyone, and that means they have to work for women as well. I am excited to be here today with Hope Zoeller. She is going to give us an incredible workshop. So I hope you have your pens and paper ready about living aligned, how to discover what truly matters, discover what drives you, and set goals that truly matter. Before I turn it over to Hope, I want to brag about how amazing and fabulous she is. She is the founder and president of Hope, helping other people excel. I love how you used your name on that one as well. And really, she specializes in facilitating leader success at every level of the organization. She worked at UPS for most of her career and had an extensive career there in customer service, training and development, and employee relations. Since then, she has been consulting with organizations on leadership development. She is also a professor at Spalding University, teaching in the Masters of Business Communication program. She has her doctorate in leadership education, a Master's of Education and Training and Development, and a bachelor's in communication and psychology. She co-wrote a book with Dr. George DeCenci, Hope for Leaders Unabridged. She is the proud recipient of Business First 2007 40 under 40 recipients. She has an incredible amount of awards. We are grateful that she is in our CWIB community as an incredible mentor. I think she's about to start her fourth cohort here. She also is a coach, and we'll put information later on here of how you can directly work with her as well. The chat's going. We will be monitoring it. Feel free to write your comments and thoughts in there as we go along. And now I want to turn it to Hope. You know, we're not given our names, but sometimes we really embody what they are. And I can truly say that is who Hope is. So with that, Hope, give us all some hope ourselves.
Well, thank you. And it's interesting you just said that, because I thought about living aligned and you said hope, and I'm like, okay, I try to bring hope. So yeah, I didn't even think about it from that total perspective. But yes. Well, I am very excited to be here with each of you, and I'm seeing some familiar faces from the Grow cohort. So welcome to those that I've worked with, to those that I've not had the opportunity to work with. I hope that we can remain connected after this. And so we're just going to dive in. We did send you, and I hope everybody was able to get a copy of a workbook that is going to accompany this conversation. If you did not, Viviana did send that out, so you should have it in your inbox somewhere. Don't necessarily have to have it per se, but it will help you work through the exercises of coming up with your goal. But as I said, I'll talk you through that. And then once we get there, we are going to do some breakout rooms and be able to share with each other some of the things that we've reflected on as far as, are you living your life in alignment? So really, that's where we're going to begin. And I'm going to ask you to utilize the chat for this. And I want you to just come up with one word that describes how you feel in your career right now. So just one word. Overwhelmed, bored, overwhelmed, stuck, frustrated, new beginning. Perfect time of year for this conversation then. Got satisfied, complicated, ready, optimistic, not 100% sure, stuck, confident, challenged, inspired, burnout. Yes, a lot of us are feeling that way, especially right now. Pivoting. Okay, Jocelyn, great. Now I want you to come up with one word that describes how you would like to feel in your career. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the career you're in right. I mean, for most of us, it may not be the career we're in right now, but how do you want to feel? Joyful, excited, inspired, energized. These words are energizing me. Confident, excited, fulfilling, confident, energized, engaged in making a difference, impactful, energized, fulfilled. Okay, wonderful. Well, my goal is to help you at least get started on the path of those two words being more in alignment. So, how you feel in your current, how you want to feel, do those words match up? And for a lot of us here, no, they do not. And so, hence why you're here today for us to talk about it. But really, living in alignment is the foundation for living a whole, purposeful, and very powerful life. And I'll tell you a little bit about my journey and my story and how, the words that you always use describing how you feel right now. I felt for a number of years when I was in corporate America. So bad, in fact, that I would sit in my car and cry before I would go in because I was just so miserable and thought I was stuck. And so I'll kind of walk you through that process of how I was able to get out of that. Because when we live with our values and our actions and they're both in alignment, we really stop chasing others' approvals of things that we think, they think we should do. And we really are able to start creating impact in our lives. So, with that, we are going to move forward and just jump into helping you take a look at clarifying your own core values. If you do have a copy of the workbook to reference at this point, it's on the top of page 2, and I've got the values up here, and I will share those with you here in just a moment. But I'm going to ask you to initially circle 8 to 10 of them and or write down just a few, but I want you to narrow that down to 3 to 5. 3 to 5 of the values that when I put this list up resonate with you the most. If there is a value that is not up there that is a very important value for you, please feel free to write it in. You're not limited to this list. This is just a list to help you get jump started on that. So here's some sample values. So as I said, the goal would be just initially kind of pick maybe 8 or 10 of them, and then I'd like for you to narrow them down to your top 3 to 5. And once you've done that, if you want to pop some of those in the chat, just kind of share with us what the values you came up with, that would be great. And I do want to share a helpful resource at this point. I don't know how many of you listen to Mel Robbins, but she's got a wonderful podcast. She did, I think it was sometime last year, an episode with Dr. Todd Rose, and it talked about, are you living your life in alignment? Are you doing basically what brings you joy? And I will tell you, even though I feel like it's taken me a long time to get here, I am in it, but it was very validating. She provided a lot of great tips. So I am going to offer that to you as, something as a takeaway from today. I would recommend checking out that episode as well as multiple episodes, but that one specifically just really asks you to look at your life and are you doing the things that you really want to do and are in alignment with your values, or are you just doing something because somebody told you that would probably be a great job for you? And I've had that happen to me as well. So, just to give you a little bit of background as you are looking through your core values. When I was at UPS and I finished my doctorate, I had a manager that came up to me and said, that's really great that you've got a doctorate, leadership education. So when you retire in 25 years, are you going to go teach? And I remember having this reaction of just, what? 25 years? I'm like, no, I want to do this now. And I really started down a path at that point of figuring out what do I need to do? Because I've been there 14 years. And so it was, that thing, but I wasn't any longer happy. I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do. I wasn't doing what I felt was in alignment with what I valued and what I really wanted to achieve. So I say all that to you because it wasn't easy. It took me about 2 years to really figure that out. And, what I will tell you, and I say this quote all the time, is that you have to live your plan A and you're going to work your plan B. So this doesn't happen overnight. I mean, this conversation is just really a journey for you to begin if you're stuck in that and overwhelmed and stressed and burned out. This is the journey to begin getting out of that. And I just want to say to you that it took me a while to get there, but it's worth the work. It's worth the work. And so hopefully today we'll begin that work with you. So just taking a look at some of the values, the balance, health, gratitude, service, creativity, collaboration. I love that. I love that. Family, freedom, wisdom. Yes, it's important to know what your values are so that you can be in alignment then with what is it that you want to build for yourself and for your career. So hold on to those because those are going to keep coming up here in just a moment. So now that we've got our 3 to 5 values or some things you've identified, and again, these can shift some depending on where you are in your life, but for now and for purposes of today, I really want you to take a second, and again, if you have your workbook, this is on page 2. I want you to think about what activities in your career energize you the most. So I know even if we're not in the ideal place, think of a couple of things that really bring you the most joy when you get to work on those things. And then I also want you to think about what activities in your career drain you the most. That when you have to do it, it depletes you. It depletes you. So think about that. And then are you getting to use your strengths in your job? Are you really getting to be able to do that and enjoy what you're doing? And then lastly, how did those strengths connect to your values? So if you think about what are some of the strengths that you believe you bring to your team or to your job or to your role, now look at your 3 to 5 values. Are those things in alignment? And again, if they're not, how can you work to build a plan? And we'll talk about that. How can you work to build a plan to be able to get there? So for me, and it was interesting, Lisa said hope, helping other people excel. I came up with that name in grad school for a leadership project. Did not think I would ever do anything with it till I got to a point in my career where I needed to make a change. It just wasn't working. I'm not a sick person, knock on wood. I'm not a sick person, but I was starting to get sick a lot, and the stress of me not living in alignment was starting to manifest itself. And so I knew I needed to change and I needed to do something different. But for me, my values are really the collaboration, growth, learning, helping other people, which I added that one, and then service. And I do leadership development, so I do individual one-on-one coaching, and I also do training. I really feel like now I'm at a point in my life, just hitting 16 years in business, that I am able to fully do that for the people that I work with. But as I said, I didn't just start there. I got there, and I still constantly review these for myself. Is this still really where I'm feeling the most impact? Is this still what I value? And it has shifted a little bit over the years. When certain personal things happen, you change those things. So, don't think that this is something that you come up with and you'll never have to go through this exercise again. It's just checking back in and making sure, am I still living in alignment? And if I'm not, then how do I make that change? How do I make that shift to be able to do that? So this means that we need to set some goals. So thinking about, like I said, what really brings you joy, what energizes you, what drains you, what strengths are you getting to utilize on your job, what would you like to be doing more of? Extremely important to think about that. And then I want you to, especially for those of us that right now, our words in the beginning were very different. What type of goal can you set for yourself at this moment? And a SMART goal, and that's why I have this up here. I'm sure all of us are familiar with what a SMART goal is. What kind of SMART goal can you set for yourself to start that journey? I mean, what is one thing that you can start doing today? Maybe researching something. Maybe you've got an interest in something that you would like to pick up. Maybe, just listening to some podcasts or doing something. That's why I say to you that living your A and working your B, I did that for a number of years. And I'll tell you, on the days that I was the most depressed, I would just stop working on whatever it was I was working on at work, and I would just spend like 15 minutes, 20 minutes working on this plan. And every day putting a little bit of effort and energy to that. So I was able to get to where I eventually wanted to be. And so on page 3, there is a place for you. And I know because of the shortness of time, this may be something you need to sit with. But I wanted to provide this process for you so you can at least begin to start thinking about it and start putting it out there into the universe, talking about it, because I really do believe that can help you manifest it. Absolutely. So once you've got a goal, which, like I said, this seems pretty simple, but it took me a while to get there. Think about what barriers might be happening for you. I will tell you, for mine, initially leaving a corporate job and thinking about doing my own thing, the barrier for me was flat out fear. How do I know I'm going to be able to make money doing this? I won't have a steady paycheck. I don't have an expense account anymore. I don't, there were all these things that I was going to lose. And I had to really sit with, but what are all of these things that I'm going to gain? So for me, the biggest barrier was the talk that was going on in my head. Because a lot of people were saying, this would be great, you would be great. But then there was also those people going, you are flat out crazy, quitting a job with benefits. And I'll be honest with you, my parents initially, you're going to what? I mean, you're like, you're leaving all this to go do this? And I said, but this is what I want to do. From a young age, I've always loved teaching. I taught my stuffed animals, my dolls. I mean, if you look back on my life, I didn't know it was going to lead me here. But I said, as I got here, to figure out that alignment. So one of the things that you can do, and I highly recommend this to, and, anticipate and minimize some of these barriers for yourself, is I spent probably at least a couple of months talking to other consultants because keeping in mind, I wanted to go out and do leadership development consulting. I talked to a number of consultants across different industries doing different things, but they all had left something like corporate America and had started their own thing. And they told me the good, the bad, the ugly. And it really did, I think, in the beginning for me, help me mitigate some of the barriers that they said you are going to come up against. And so when they did, it was like, oh, I was told there were going to be days like this. So it was very helpful for me because I was able to kind of go through and trust me, I still had barriers that popped up. But because I had talked to people and I had really spent that time just listening and, just like tell me all about it, my learning curve jumped way up. So if you yourself are thinking about shifting industries, not even starting your own business, but you're thinking about doing something differently, I recommend going out and using your network, talking to people that are doing similar things that you might like to do and developing, some kind of at least plan that you're putting together of like, okay, this is some things to do, this is some things to not do. That was probably the most invaluable thing I did in the beginning before I even started anything, before I even had something set up. But talking to people, networking, letting them know what you're interested in. And if you're struggling, which, some people I coach are, where it's like, hope it's not that simple for me. I don't really have a job per se I want to go to. I don't know what I want to do yet. Going through this exercise, and I'll give you some additional resources at the end that can help you frame that. Don't start with the job first. Start with what your values are. Start with what brings you joy. What are your strengths? What are some things that you could do in a career for your strengths and values that you could contribute to that? But you don't necessarily have to have it so locked and loaded that you know what you're going to do per se, like right now. It's just figuring that out. And part of this journey and this process and this exercise that I'm kind of walking you through can help you frame that. And then maybe you then identify some people that would be really good to talk to that can help kind of frame that better for you about what that looks like at the end. Like where, again, where do I want to end up? So of course, after we go through that, the hardest part is taking that first step. And I love one of my yoga teachers always says, thank you for coming to class today. You did the hardest step. You got to the mat. You got to the mat. You got up this morning. You made a choice to be here. You congratulate yourself on that. And so that's what I say to you. The hardest step is just getting started, is taking a look at, again, if I don't know what I value, what are my things I value? Maybe you do, but you've never really identified it as specifically as we're talking about this afternoon. So when you have that, then you can begin, okay, what is the first step I'm going to take? I'm going to find somebody that I can talk to about something I'm interested in, as I said, or read a book or do a podcast or reach out to somebody. It's just the first step. What is the first step that you are going to take to be able to get this started? And there is a place, if you have the workbook on page 3, for you to jot this down. Because what I would like for us to do is we are going to go into our breakout rooms, and I would like for you to just share some of your initial thoughts. And if at this point you just say, Hope, I only know my top 3 to 5 values based on what you shared, I need to think through the rest of it. That is absolutely okay. If some of you are already formulating, okay, this is exciting, I kind of have an idea of what some things I might like to do, share that. But each person in the group, I would ask you just take a few minutes, share that, and then we're going to come back and debrief that. So in just a moment, we will be putting you into your rooms, and then we will be coming back. And as I said, we'll debrief that, share some more, take any questions that you might have, and then we'll go from there. All right, welcome back, everybody. I would love if 2 of you would be willing to unmute yourself and share with the group, maybe just your goal, maybe what you've identified as your values, what this brief conversation that we had has really made you start thinking about, but just two people. And I promise you, you will be rewarded for your participation. So, do I have somebody that would be willing to share? I okay, and I'm gonna not sure how to pronounce. So just come on and please tell me. I do not want to mispronounce your name. I want to hear it correctly so that I can do it. But I've got a hand up.
Of
Um,
course. Hi, Hope. Hi,
Hi,
everyone. I'm Monsi. So,
Muncie.
in
Welcome.
my breakout room, we talked a lot about self-care and what it means to us and our routines. We all come from different walks of life, but I heard a lot of inspiring thoughts as to how to really prioritize yourself and your well-being, especially during transformative times. We had like a working mom in my group. We had a yogi in my group.
I love
We
it.
had myself who I'm, navigating unemployment after being laid off during the holidays. So
Mhm.
it really felt like a safe space for me to kind of share that information. And it feels kind of vulnerable after a couple years of really solid employment to be on the other side of things, especially during such a tough market. But I think hearing everybody's thoughts and what we can do for ourselves, and we all have busy routines, but how to
Mhm.
kind of incorporate really, and it doesn't even need to be like you need to sit with yourself for X amount of time to feel well rested. How can you do small things for yourself that amount to larger changes in your life that make you feel that, good about yourself? So I thought it was really inspiring to learn more. And as I'm creating a new routine for myself, because I was used to very much in office hybrid schedule, it's really made me think twice about what I can do, for myself during the day to make myself feel fulfilled in this new environment.
I love that, Monsi. And so, what I'm going to ask that you do, and for the next person that volunteers, if you will reach out for me, I've got a slide with my contact info.
Okay.
Let me know your address, and I will tell you all when the second person goes what your fabulous prize is going to be for this.
I
But
appreciate it,
yes,
Hope.
you just need to email me your details of that. But I love that self-care piece of it. And in scheduling time for yourself in a day, I mean, even if you just kind of sit with, I'm trying to build a new plan for myself, a plan, just I find that a to-do list doesn't work for me anymore. Actually build it into my calendar of today, I'm going to spend 30 minutes working on my living in alignment plan or coming up with my values or because what I find is if I don't schedule that time for myself, even and I love you had a yogi in your group, even if I don't schedule yoga for myself in a week, everything comes at the mercy of someone else or someone else's need because I'm like, well, I didn't really have to do that today. But I will tell you all that appointments with yourself are just as important as appointments with other people. Sometimes they are the most important. And I know this is an extremely overused um, way to say this, but it's the airplane. They tell you to put the oxygen on yourself first because if you don't, you can't help other people breathe. And so I firmly stand by that. And it took me a while to get here with that because I had a mother that thought that was being lazy if you rested or if you took some time to go take a walk for yourself or do something for yourself. It doesn't matter what it is. So it took me some time to realize that's not selfish, that's self-love. And I think that that's really important to remember. And just as I said, setting aside time for yourself to figure out what's next, that's important too. So oh, I love all these comments. Yeah, I always do that or I won't can't work it in. That's so true. You've got to schedule those activities. Absolutely. Well, all right, you got us kicked off. Who will be the one other person that will share with us what they talked about, your goals? Would love to hear it.
So Hope I raised my hand if no one else is wanting
Oh,
to go. I
perfect.
don't mind to.
You go right
Okay.
ahead. You've got the floor.
So there were three of us who were a little more talkative than the other three, but the common theme, if Christy or Jennifer want to weigh in, was where we prioritize being moms with work. That seems to be all three of us who spoke up have kids, have had, I don't know why it's giving me a thumbs up, have encountered what examples are we setting for our children, especially those of us with daughters,
Mhm.
where are we not showing up for them when we're showing up for work, but where is it important to show up for work and show them that we should show up for work, that they, leading by example. And so really finding that balance and what's important to do now versus do like I put my career, I would say, I won't say on hold, but at a slower pace when
Mm-hmm.
my daughter was coming up. And then once she went out to college and now she's graduated from college and married and
Oh
did all
my
the things,
gosh.
right? I know, right? You raise them to be strong, independent women. They're going to actually do it. And it hurts the heart a little when they do. But, but that's when I really made a significant change and applied in my career, only
Mhm.
to find out that long-term goal I really wanted, that I thought I wanted. Now that I've achieved it, I've reassessed my goals, and family is still that high priority, and I want to get back to my family. But when we're going through it and living it day by day in our careers, we have one young lady, I assume she's young, she has a younger child, is in that flux of, do I pursue my career hot and heavy now to achieve my goals? Do I, slow the process and be there for my child? And I just think that as women, that's something we all probably deal with more so than the husbands or the male figures of children in our lives.
Mm. Yes. And I love that you talk about what's, first of all, it is lovely to see you. Lovely to see you. And
It's great to see you.
I love all the connections. Yes, it's important for our kids to see us taking care of ourselves and doing these things for ourselves. And Lisa and I were talking on Monday about, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. And so, my whole mantra for this year is really being more scrutinizing and intentional about what I can say yes to and when, and knowing that I don't have to say yes, and that's been hard for me because, I do help people for a living. So I'm always helping people. And I feel that way in my family. I take on that role of just like, I need to facilitate this conversation at, Christmas. This is not going well. My husband's like, why do you put that on yourself? But, so for all of us, that there really is that struggle, but it does start with, taking care of ourselves. So especially those of us with children, they see that this is the normal thing to do. This is what you should be doing. And you don't have to be doing everything. You can't do everything. You can't. And when you prioritize that and say, no, I don't want to do this because I want to spend time with family. I could, but that's just not my top priority right now. And I think that's very empowering for all of us when we're able to say that. So, yes, Kimberly, you send me your info. And so, what Kimberly, what you all are going away with from this is I'm going to send you a copy of our book, Hope for Leaders in the 2020s, and you're getting a 45-minute complimentary leadership coaching session to help you work on whatever goal you set for yourself out of all of this, or anything else you want to talk about leadership related. So that will all be coming your way. So I want to thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
sharing that, being vulnerable and sharing your goals with us. I think it's important for all of us to be able to hear those things. And so I want to share this quote with you. This was interesting because I had not originally had this quote in when I put this together for you all. I had something from Gandhi, and it was a lovely Gandhi quote. Don't get me wrong. I didn't ditch Gandhi. But because I was sharing the Mel Robbins podcast with Dr. Todd Rose, of course, your phones are always listening. So this quote appears in my Facebook feed from Mel Robbins. And I mean, I will be quite honest with you. It made me start crying because I looked at that when she was like, just a life that feels like yours, where you wake up, glad it's your day, glad you would, you would choose your life again. I thought back to that time when I was so misaligned with my life. I was misaligned in my marriage. I was misaligned in my career. So, in 2009, I just tore it all apart, broke it down, and, left an 18-year relationship, a 14-year job, to go off and do what I thought I was meant to do. And that's to bring hope into the world. So I encourage each one of you have something to bring and something to contribute. It's finding your place for that. And I promise you, once you do, not every day is going to be easy. And even in a job I love, I have a lot of things I don't like to do. But for the most part, it should be more about being energized than it is about being drained. And so, two resources that I am going to leave you with that I recommend if you have not heard of these, if you're in that place of still trying to figure some things out, is What Color is Your Parachute? It is an amazing book. Every year there's a new edition. I highly encourage you to get the latest one and don't buy it used because unless you just want to read, because there's pages for you to work on. And I bought it used and I had someone else's dreams and goals, which was totally fine, but then that kind of got into my head a little bit. But that's by Richard Nelson Bowles and Mark Emery Bowles, if you again want to check that out. And then the other one is Designing Your Life: How to Build a Well-Lived, Joyful Life. And that's David Evans, Bill Burnett, and Dave Evans has written that one. So again, just a couple more resources that I want to share with you because this is just the beginning. This is the easy part, showing up to, to our conversation. Now you have to kind of go back and be like, what is it? Maybe sit with that. So here's some additional resources for you. I do have a podcast. I'm super excited. I am not the Mel rating or Mel Robbins rating level yet, but it is coming along. And Lisa with Rutgers is going to be a guest on my third season. So you're definitely going to want to check out her episode because we talk a lot about what we've been talking about today, especially the self-care and, being women in the workforce. So please, if you're interested in any of that, it's available wherever you get your podcasts. I've got my contact info, my website. Please connect with me on LinkedIn because you have hope in your network now, and utilize that. And I say this every time I do things like this, that you now know me. So please, and I know some of you I've worked with already and we've stayed in contact and I've loved that. So for those of you on today that I haven't gotten to meet, I would love the opportunity to connect with you and, what is it that I can do for you? So we do have another webinar February the 6th, and the registration, Viviana is going to put it in the link if you're interested in that. It's a bit of a companion piece to this, but the reason why we did this one first is because you've got to figure out what your values are, kind of where you're headed a little bit. This next conversation that we're going to have is about owning your leadership journey and positioning yourself for growth and advancement. So, maybe for some of you, you're not where you want to be, but you want to advance in your organization. So how do you go about doing that? How do you network? How do you get where you want to be? And I'll tell you, hint, it's all about relationships. So we will talk about that. So if there's something that you would be interested in, I highly recommend, we would love to have you back. Please tell others about it so that they can come too. And this will be available recorded. So I know some of you had commitments come up, you weren't able to jump on in the beginning. You'll be able to go back and watch the first part as well. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and we are about right at time, but if there are any questions or you want to put in the chat or come off and just ask one thing, I believe we've got a minute or two that we can spare. We started just 1 or 2 minutes late, but if you have to jump off due to another commitment, completely understand. But if there is anything that you would like to throw out there or say, absolutely. And if not, it was lovely spending this afternoon, part of your afternoon with you. So thank you.